Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how I created this beautiful opal table from scratch using resin. So let's dive right in. I'm using an HDPE mold for this project, and since those can be a bit finicky, you definitely want to start off with a mold release. I'll be using polycolor pearl pigments, specifically blue pearl, green pearl, and violet pearl metallic to create the opal effect. For the resin, the base will be made with Alumilite's Amazing Clear Cast Epoxy. I grabbed 2 colors of holographic paper. You could pick whichever color speaks to you. I start by mixing up my 2-part epoxy and coloring it with the violet pearl metallic pigment. We're going to be doing this in 2 separate layers. After pouring the first layer, I use a torch gun to pop any surface bubbles. I prefer using a torch gun because it's more effective than a heat gun. A heat gun is mostly used to move resin around. Now I'm going to be facing the holographic paper face down into the resin. I like leaving this textured because the light will reflect in different areas and it gives you different colors from the paper. So that's kind of my reasoning behind squishing it and layering it that way. You can do this immediately or you can wait a few hours, either one works. I use a stick to poke holes into the paper to release any trapped bubbles. After about 3 or 4 hours, you can go back in and make sure all of those bubbles are popped. Once the first layer is cured enough to pour on top, it's time to mix a second batch. I'm splitting this into 3 cups and adding a different pearl pigment to each one: green, blue, and purple. These colors are so beautiful on their own and even better once they start blending together within the piece. They look so dreamy when they mix together and are key for achieving an opal effect. I use a special gold pigment that floats to the surface. When you hit it with a heat gun, it creates a gorgeous marbled shimmer. I start off with a clear layer so it's easier to lay down my satin pigments. Going in with my green satin first, some purple satin, and then some blue. I use a little spreader to blend those colors together, and then I go in with some metallic gold. This part is all about movement. You want to use a heat gun here, not a blowtorch, to gently push the gold in one direction. This helps create depth and wave-like texture within the gold pigment. As you can see, it's creating small little waves of gold. If you have any colored resin left over, I go back in and I add more to the piece just to bring richness to it. Now comes a very important step. I pour clear resin along the edges of the gold sections. This creates these beautiful little mushroom cloud textures and allows the holographic paper to peek through in places. I continue blending and manipulating the resin with my heat gun until I like how it looks. I use a blowtorch to pop any remaining bubbles. The heat gun is great for movement, but the blowtorch is what really gets rid of the bubbles effectively. Once the piece is fully cured, I demold it. Thanks to the mold release, it comes out relatively easy. However, these molds with the ridges can be a little tricky. Now I'm adding a wooden support underneath. I use the mold outline as a template to cut the wood slightly smaller so it fits just underneath my resin. This prevents sagging. This will be a plant holder, so I want to make sure it can handle the weight. I also like to make my own resin crystals, especially for the opal tables, because the holographic effect is so beautiful and really matches the table well. For this table, I've already made some small resin crystals using holographic paper. I'll also be using real quartz crystals to mix things up. The blend between the two give it a more natural look with unique shapes. I'm gluing the crystals together with hot glue for now, and we'll go over them with resin later to lock them in place. So I just align these however I feel looks natural. As you can see, the quartz are a little bit bigger than the resin crystals. That's why I mixed the two together. For the back of the piece, I'm using Alumilite's liquid latex. It's so much easier than tape and a great way to prevent drips from sticking. If tape is all you have, that works as well. I'm applying a thick layer, making sure to get around all the edges. I did avoid the crystals a little bit just so the resin will be able to soak into those more. I'm adding final touches of blue pigment to the resin crystals for more dimension and color, just brushing some on to bring them to life. Now it's time for our top coat. I'm using Alumilite's Amazing Clear Cast Outdoor Epoxy for this because it has superior UV protection, perfect for a piece that's going near a window. I'm also adding some holographic flakes to highlight the crystal edges. This part is optional, but I like to mix a drop of purple alcohol ink into my top coat. It prevents yellowing over time. When you're doing this layer, you really want to make sure that you are getting into those crystal spaces and making sure that you have gone over all of the glue with resin so they don't fall off. And this is where I add the holographic flakes just to bring more color and reflection into the crystals. Once the final layer is cured, I remove the latex backing. It peels off super easily, no sanding required. You just want to make sure you're pulling the latex down, and then those drips will peel right off. Easy as that. Now that you're seeing a close-up, you can really see those holographic flakes come into play on those resin crystals. They're really glowing now. To attach the wooden base, I'm using Alumilite's Enviroset 5-minute epoxy glue. This stuff is incredibly strong, it bonds to almost anything. I mixed the two parts and glued the wood to the back. It sets quickly, about 5 minutes, and then we can move on. You just want to make sure you're getting a nice even layer throughout the whole piece, that way you're getting it to stick efficiently. The last step is adding the legs. In my previous videos, I've drilled directly into the resin, but this time I'm attaching the legs into the wood for extra stability. You can do it either way. Just know you will need to pre-drill the holes into the resin. And here it is, the final piece. We've got those gorgeous crystals catching the light and reflecting the opal tones throughout the table. Sometimes I place the crystals in the center or even create hollow space in the middle to fill with stones. There are so many ways to customize this design. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button, drop a like if you have any questions, and let me know what type of table you'd like to see next. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it.